Welcome to the 8th season of Smart Talks with Jovan, where we talk to people shaping the future of energy and technology. This season is called Kenya's Smart Metering Moment, Challenges, Policies and Pathways. And we are focusing on how Kenya is building a smarter, more efficient power system. I'm joined by Mr. Daniel Bungey, future energy leader at World Energy Council. Daniel is an experienced energy and sustainable development professional with deep expertise in renewable energy, energy access, smart technologies, and sustainability. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you, Jovan. As always, it's a pleasure to speak with you.
Okay, it's a pleasure to have you with us. And I would like to start with the first question in this our interview. Given your experience while working in energy field in Kenya, could you share more about your involvement and specific projects related to the rollout of smart meters?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much again, Jovan. Thank you for having me. As always, it's a pleasure to have this conversation. I think it's quite timely and important that we are engaging in dialogue and sharing in issues of digitalization as a critical core component of energy transition, as well as energy access in globally, as well in Africa, and more importantly in Kenya. When we talk about the pillar of digitalization, it kind of builds up well into the pyramid of decarbonization and decentralization, which is some of the things that contribute to building resilient energy systems. Now, my involvement has been quite, I think, throughout my career. I've worked in one way or another in the sector of energy digitalization. I started off with consumer end tools, working on consumer-facing tools that were to do with the building management systems that in a way integrated also smart meters and utility monitoring tools. Also components of energy management systems for efficiency improvement within a diverse set of consumers, majorly commercial industrial consumers in Kenya, and transition smoothly into the utility side of things. And I've worked on projects with mini grid developers who also integrate energy technology components and smart meters for that matter, and also with central grids utilities who are also very critical when it comes to energy transition in Kenya, being that it's a combined, it combines different players. There's the mini grid operators, there's the central grid operator, who is the main distributor of electricity in the name of Kenya Power. So I have had a chance to work cross-cuttingly from consumer end solutions, smart metering solutions, and towards utility, and work with mini grids as well as utility central solutions. I think cross-cuttingly, there's diverse set of projects, the diverse set of learnings also acquired in the process, being that I have not only operated on the field side deployment, I've also been on the standards regulatory focus and view of things, as well as now progressively being part of contributions to strategy definition, as well as consultancies on efficiency performance improvements for utilities, not only in Kenya. Yeah, Kenya is where I'm based. Kenya is where I look into, but cross-cuttingly across Africa and in Southeast Asia, which majorly have common characteristics when it comes to some of the issues that utilities are grappling with, which is to do with performance improvement, contributed largely by the need to address losses. And if you look at addressing losses, we have to have an understanding of where the losses are coming from. And the basic component that contributes to that is the device that measures so that you're able to control, you're able to analyze, and you're able to control. So smart metering, according to me and according to my experience, is largely kind of mapping quite well with my career and experience from being consumer, working at the consumer end, and transitioning progressively to the utility wider focus of digitalization.
Yes. Okay, Daniel, and then we can continue that based on your information and on your opinion, what is the current status of smart metering system implementation in Kenya in terms of coverage, technology, and key stakeholders?
So the current status of smart metering in Kenya, I think it's quite an interesting phase for sure, because the country is quite at the early stage, let's say crossroads of deployment of smart meters and smart metering in general, which is tied to the bigger agenda of grid modernization and grid enhancement strategy. Now, when you look at who are the key players, because this is what informs where each of them is at when it comes to the evolution of the integration of smart metering. We have, I would say, two kind of distinct focus areas. We have the mini grid, private grid developers who integrate smart meters by default as an aspect of revenue protection and business survival. And they are often by default deploying digital solutions. And if we look in the past decade, there's been quite a very vibrant focus on off-grid mini-grid systems for energy access in Africa. And most of these have come mostly by default integrating smart meters. So as part of their deployment, and as I said, largely driven by the business case requirement to make sure that they're having revenue protection mechanisms and revenue recovery mechanisms, and of course, largely driven by the desire to show the investors that they are able to account for this amount of energy sold. So by default, they have gone to smart metering. When it comes to the national utility focus, and in this case, I'm talking now about Kenya Power, which is the largest distributor in Kenya, having customers of almost, I think, approximately, to plate maybe 10 million customers thereabouts. Their approach has been much of an evolutionary one. And if you look at it, it's moved from manual meters to AMR enabled meters, and most recently to AMI meters. So they operate with a mix of solutions. But if this was to be defined as at what stage are they in, I would say they are quite in an early stage, because the penetration against the total connected population is more or less around 5%. Of course, prioritizing mostly the large industrial, commercial, industrial consumers, because this is, of course, revenue driven. So if you are to focus on pursuing smart metering as a revenue efficiency solution or improvement, then they have largely looked at who are the main revenue contributors. This happens to be largely the commercial industrial consumers, and these are the customers that have been prioritized in deployment of smart meters. So we would largely say that a larger percentage, maybe over 90% of the commercial, industrial, or heavy consumers are currently on smart meters, while the majority of the small consumers, as well as the residential level consumers, are majorly on prepaid solutions. And these are prepaid meters that large flexibilities around top-ups. You can use a mobile phone. You can use a typical scratch card bought from a kiosk, Therefore, the larger population of smart meters, of meters, sorry, within the small consumers and domestic consumers are within the prepaid model. There's still also a population of meters that are conventional, or you'd say the manually read meters, and yeah, so the utility is operating with a mix of meters, but largely the penetration, if you look at the larger average, is still quite at an early stage. But appreciating, of course, the fact that this is a utility that has evolved. It's likely even more than 100 years, and has progressively had to build on its systems and solutions progressively. The other thing to note is that the type of smart meters maybe that are, if you look at the 5% approximately thereabouts that are deployed, are largely defined around the communication technologies. And the mainstay one right now is on GPRS for the heavy industrial consumers. Yeah. So in summary, Kenya is quite an early stage of deployment. Penetration levels more or less somewhere around 5%, prioritizing the large industrial consumers. There's a mix of technologies. You have manually read meters, you have meters that are AMR enabled. There's been AMI meters deployed as well. The large defining factor is revenue protection, revenue collection efficiency improvement. And then also there's the recognition of the fact that there is a substantial number of meters that are prepaid conventional meters.
Okay. And do you know, are there national plans or strategies that foresee a large-scale rollout of smart meters in the coming years? And how are regulatory bodies in Kenya encouraging or guiding the development of smart metering rollout through laws and regulations?
Yeah, so there is no unified national metering strategy in Kenya that is specifically highlighting a roadmap or building a roadmap for smart metering rollouts. But we see fragmented and enabling puzzles of the policy. So, and this include policies around energy efficiency, policies around net metering, policies around time of use, and strategies for grid modernization and grid improvement that not necessarily calling out smart metering. But if you look at it, they in some way contribute or enable the smart metering, but not defined specifically as smart metering. So I think I would say this is more or less having a focus on ingredients, but sort of lacking a common recipe for deployment. Some of the strategies that have been pursued, of course, by the utilities have been a mix of approaches. So if you look at the national utility, it's gone in its integration plan for smart meters. It's largely leveraged on its internal budgeting mechanism, and therefore it has to, slowly being an improvement, a learning and improvement kind of environment or focus, and then and largely also sometimes tied to electrification projects that are initiatives of government. So, but if it's specific on a national level roadmap or strategy for national metering, for smart metering, we don't have that, but there's parts of the puzzle that fit together, enabling the sort of the uptake of smart metering sort of organically. But there's room, honestly, for putting together a sort of a strategic roadmap for enabling a transition towards a fully operational smart metering system nationally.
Okay. So this concludes the first part of our interview with Mr. Daniel Bungey. In the second part, we'll go deeper into funding, practical challenges, and lessons from his work in regulation and energy efficiency. Thank you.